We ready to go? Okay.
Yeah.
This is Michael Moore, and he is from the Department of Justice. And one of our different staff member found him as an expert here from the Department DEA. And he came about a year ago and talked to some of the Summit kids, and we found him to be a great resource. And so we asked him to come back and do a training on current drug trends. He's very knowledgeable, so ask him lots of questions and we'll go from there. So thank you for coming. We appreciate it.
You're very welcome. Again, I'll introduce myself. My name is Michael Moore. I'm a special agent with the Drug Enforcement Administration. I've been with DEA now for 13 years. In that time, I've done pretty much the whole gambit from working casework, undercover work, meth labs. I'm one of our meth lab coordinators. I'm a tactical instructor. Denver PD and or PD SWAT qualified, LA County SWAT. Prior to that, I was in the Army. I was a Ranger in the Army. I was military police in the Army. I was protective service in the Army. I don't say that to like pad who I am. I say that just so you can say, hey, if there's a question, I might know it. If I don't, I'm not going to lie to you. I'm going to tell you, I have no idea. When I do my talks to staffs and things like that, I also teach at the DARE conference, and I'm using a PowerPoint that I use for law enforcement as well. You guys are some of that pseudo because you deal with the aftermath of law enforcement and such. People who have gotten in trouble and you're dealing with that, so kind of the same thing that the DARE officers are dealing with. There's a lot of information where I go through, but I do need one person that can actually doesn't mind sitting up a little bit closer that can make this thing continue on because you don't have a clicker. Anybody want to step up? That's really close, wearing a black shirt or something like that.
I knew it. I knew she would. She's on our committee. She has to do it.
Right. Also, the way I talk about this is not only you guys staff, but you guys are also parents. How many of you guys are parents? Teenage kids, less than preteens. Okay, kids that are still like in that 18 to 25 range. They're still kids. I got a 20-year-old. Trust me, he's still a kid. All right. A lot of the information I talk about, people are, you got to realize that right now, those kids' brains haven't even began to get to that point where they're developed fully, and their rational thinking and such. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that later on. This is one of our websites that we offer called Just Think Twice. The parent website is Get Smart About Drugs. I do have a handout about that too. What we're going to talk about today is visually identifying drugs. One of the first ones we talk about is marijuana, methamphetamine, cocaine, household drugs, things that you don't think are a drug, but that are commonly abused as drugs. And then we're going to talk about our synthetics, the K2 spice, the bath salt, the 2CE, things that are out there that are on the horizon, are being used and being abused right now. I'm going to recognize the different effects. What does each drug do? Each drug has a different effect on the body. Right, marijuana. Typically, when we talk about marijuana at the DEA level, we're talking about tons, hundreds of pounds, tons of marijuana. On the user level, this is what we're talking about. But right now, if you have any questions about medical marijuana, I can speak briefly about it. I'm not a proponent of it. It's still legal federally. There's a lot of issues that we're dealing with federally on the whole medical marijuana thing. I was just down at the VA hospital yesterday, and most of the VA people are not pro-medical marijuana. It really doesn't do what it's supposed to do. All right? What is the difference?
Back up, please!
And the fact that, one with medical marijuana, when you take marijuana in, whether you smoke it or ingest it, how it metabolizes in your body is different each time. So if I smoke weed, I take a hit, I blow it out. It's just like air. I have a brief period of time in which I can absorb that into my system. The rest of it goes out. Okay. So, but if I eat it, it's got to take the whole course. It's going to be in there through the whole time. So everybody's a little different on it. So what they're looking for, saying, okay, it suppresses the nausea system and it helps you gain weight. Marinol does exactly that without any other side effects, which is legal marijuana, which is the THC that's in weed. So the concept behind medical marijuana is flawed in what they're saying. I wish they would just come out and say, we just want to get high. That would be a lot more real. It would be reasonable. So, again, we'll talk, yes.
I don't think you're plugged in anymore.
I'm not. I'm not going to do it usually. When I work out, I need to run it through here. Some of you like when I lift. I'm going to throw it down here, that way I don't get caught up. Can you hear me now? All right. So we'll talk about the different types, hash oil, and the main thing that's in there is the THC, and that's what actually gets you high. All right. Different street names you're going to hear: pot, ganja, weed, grass, 420, bud, blunt, sinsemilla. What's funny is when you talk about Indo. Does anybody kind of know how the slang term of Indo came up when I talk about weed?
How they grow it.
Yeah, who said that? Absolutely. That's all that's from. It's from indoor weed.
Indoor, okay.
Yeah. And so a lot of people that don't know that think that's something special. But, yeah, I got indoor. It's simply, when you grow weed indoors, you can control the plant. All right. My talks are very back and forth because I start asking questions instead of you asking me questions sometimes. Marijuana, natural or not?
Natural.
Natural. Who's giving me the natural
I'm
comment?
giving you the natural.
You're giving me the natural? Why is it natural?
Because it grows.
It grows.
Right.
Do you know how
So it's
most
like
weed that's sold on the street is grown?
You mean like inside?
Yeah, the good weed, the weed you want, not the ditch weed. The weed you really want.
Is it hydroponic?
Absolutely. No soil.
Okay.
No soil, artificial light, controlled, grown off of a clone. Where it's off of a clipping, like those vines that my wife has, it runs all over my house. It started with one little plant, and everybody wants them, hey, let me get a clipping. That same thing with weed. All right? Anything natural about that anymore. If you don't, what's natural is out here. Normal sunlight, you have a night and a day cycle, gets what water it's going to get, it's grown in dirt, it deals with bugs, it deals with whatever it's got out there. That's natural. Hydroponic weed, absolutely not. That's why it goes for about $3,000 a pound. Very high THC. We talk about marijuana, and I always get the argument, well, it's not like alcohol. I had a conversation just the other day when I was at the VA field. I said, do you ever hear about a guy, if I'm driving my car, everyone's like, well, you're a drunk driver. Okay, what about the guy next to me who's drinking? Well, he's not a drunk driver. But have you ever heard about anybody getting a contact drunk? Nobody can get a contact drunk,
No,
right?
you can't.
No. Cannot get a contact drunk. Get a contact high. So everybody around you's got to share in your desire to smoke weed, especially with the medical marijuana thing. Whether I want to or not, I've got to have it there. This is just oh, go back one more. Sorry. This is just to talk about how everyone says, well, drunk drivers have this many numbers, this many numbers. 374,000 ER visits with the primary diagnosis being marijuana abuse. Okay? And you look at the age groups we're talking about. One thing that we don't have when we talk about addiction is we don't have the new 32-year-old drug addict unless it's pain meds. Because people don't wait till they get to 30 and go, dang, I got out of college, job's going good, finally got the house I want, meth, next thing on my list, I'm going to go try it. It doesn't happen. All right? It starts as a youth, and it starts with risk behavior. All right. Medical marijuana deal, this is, as of 2010, all the states that have medical marijuana are in green. Those that have basically where it's been decriminalized to the ounce user amount, and then the check marks are those that are trying to get it right now. So it's permeating our country. And I'm going to tell you now, I don't believe, if anybody brought their kids in when I did the talk to their kids, I don't believe in gateway drugs. Absolutely don't. I don't think that if you start using marijuana today, next week you're doing heroin. I don't believe it. I think if you start doing marijuana today, you're going to graduate and you're going to keep looking for that high. Just like you go from 8th grade to 9th grade to high school, same thing. Methamphetamine, called the poor man's cocaine, still one of the things we deal with in law enforcement the most. That's why you see the signs and everything we have out there. Anybody know how to make meth? Anybody want to know? Quick, easy. Honestly, you can go online right now and find out how to make methamphetamine. Our computers are great. The internet is a beautiful thing, but I'm going to tell you right now, in the wrong hands, it's the worst thing you can have out there. Burn, fries, go fast, gooey, crank, crystal meth. Right now, the trend for methamphetamine that we have in law enforcement is the mom and pop labs diminishing, big time. I don't know if you guys remember back in 2000, 2001, where every Motel 6 was catching on fire, all the houses was catching on fire, because everybody had a lab in them. If you like to get Motel 6, stop. Super 8s, stop. Seriously. Those are gone. We really put a strong emphasis. DEA trained a ton of local law enforcement agencies on how to deal with this, how to see the local signs and symptoms. Now, when you go get cold medicine, you have to present your driver's license. You cannot go and smurf it anymore, where they would go and clean out the whole shelf. It used to be, back in those days, you'd go to get cold medicine, you might have to go to 2, 3 stores, because each one, they may be out of pseudoephedrine. You're like, how can you be out of pseudoephedrine? Well, because someone just came in there and bought 36 cases, boxes of it, so they can go make meth. Methamphetamine. Physically addictive, psychologically addictive. Which one? Both, absolutely. It is one of the few drugs that has that same addictive, physically and psychologically addictive. Where's meth stored?
Fat cells.
Fat cells. Who said that? Who's my meth? Meth expert out there. Fat cells, absolutely. It's like vitamin K. It's one of the few things that's stored in your fat cells. But what does that mean? Well, it's stored in your fat cells. It means that you can have what we call an uninduced relapse at any given time, because it's in your body. Let's say, I'm going to pick on somebody, you, because you're the closest one to me right now. What's your name?
Erica.
Erica. Erica's a meth head, all right? And she's out smoking meth, but she decides to clean up. Now, with most people, comes a new year, Erica says, I'm going to start jogging. I'm going to start getting in shape. Erica goes out on a jog. She starts exercising. Her body decides to tap into those fat cells. Not only is that energy release, but there's a possibility that that stored methamphetamine could be released. And suddenly she's feeling high. She's like, damn, I heard of the runner's high, but this is a little bit different, huh? So that can happen. Also, with the psychological addictive part of it, many of the meth addicts, as they walk through and they get into that same situation, those cravings come back. If you were a person whose job was to steal pseudoephedrine, when you start walking down a cold medicine aisle, you start reliving that again. And that you start falling back. That's why it is so difficult for meth addicts to get off of it. Oh, I'll tell you, you know what it is? Everybody knows how to use meth? For ingestion method. You can smoke it, you can snort it, you can eat it, and you can inject it. Typically, if you start smoking it, start eating it, start snorting it, you're going to go to smoking it, and eventually you're probably going to inject it. And the reason being, the injection method is the most efficient way of doing it. You get the best high when you inject it. Once you start hitting that vein, you're like, man, I should have been doing this all along. It's so much stronger. Just because you start off looking like one way, they don't often end that way. That's why we have these signs, the meth bugs and things like that. Methamphetamine does just diminish your whole body. It affects you tremendously. These are actually booking photos. The thing about these photos, most of these are only 6 months to a year between the two. Excuse me. So if you can imagine the body change, 6 months to a year, what that's doing to you as a whole. Methamphetamine is a Schedule 2. It's not a Schedule 1. Everybody know our schedules? Schedule 1 means it has absolutely no medical use whatsoever. Schedule 2 means it has a limited use. Cocaine and methamphetamine are both Schedule 2 drugs. Heroin is Schedule 2 drug. There is a small medical use for these drugs. All right? Started out when people started using methamphetamine because it's a stimulant. It's a pretty strong stimulant. It keeps you awake. Basically, now the use meth cycle goes, it's a binge, tweak, crash cycle. Okay? There comes a point when you're smoking and using methamphetamine where you're as high as you're going to get. Your body's not going to get any higher. I don't care how much more you use, your body isn't going to get any higher. The way methamphetamine works basically is in your brain, dopamine gets released. That's your pleasure. That's it. That hormone, that chemical that's released to make everything feel good. You've got so many intake systems on it. Basically, methamphetamine just opens that dopamine bag and lets it come out. But you only still have so many receptors. So they're getting used as much as they can. Instead of being instead of the uptake cycle going, it stops that. So it just keeps trying to go to the receptor over and over and over. Problem with that, with your body, being the amazing machine that it is, starts turning those receptors off after a while. That's why most methamphetamine addicts deal with depression following it. Stimulant followed by depression, because they always say, I can't feel pleasure. It's because your body's turned off those receptors for it. So instead of having 12, you got 6. Right? You got 6, it's not as efficient. Up until 2 years ago, the Surgeon General was saying that they never come back. Now they're saying they do, over time, but it takes a long time. Dental problems with methamphetamine. Anybody know why the dental problems happen? I'm not the expert. Anybody?
It's because of the corrosive stuff they use.
Why is that?
It's because of like the corrosive stuff because they use drain cleaner and things like that inside it.
Basically, it's acidic. It has a lot of that. That's one of the reasons, though. All right, but that's not the only reason. Anybody else? Okay. It's kind of, everyone's like, oh, of course.
Because you don't take care of it.
Absolutely. It's not high on it's not high on their priority list. Because you've already got that, the enamel in your teeth, when you're smoking it, and you're eating it or whatever you're doing with it, it starts corroding that away. But also, then the third problem is, methamphetamine, it sedates your, it stops your saliva production. A lot of methamphetamines have very dry mouths. They're always trying to drink water. So you're not producing saliva. Saliva is the number one thing that keeps your mouth clean. It always is moving in there. It's always washing bacteria off. It's always in work. You stop producing saliva, that bacteria has a chance to work, that acidic, it has to work. And if you don't brush your teeth, added to that, you end up like that. What it does to the brain, I kind of jumped. I talked about that, about the dopamine reward system. All right. Go ahead. What other? Negative health consequences, the weight loss. That's obvious. If you have a stimulant, you don't want to eat. You don't want to do anything. I don't know, how many of you guys watch HBO? They had a really good show a few years back when they were doing a lot of the methamphetamine. When we were having a lot of the labs, they did one of those like America Undercover type of deals.
Yeah, we have that.
Yeah, with the mom and the kid. Did you ever see that one?
Yeah, we have that on video.
Do you ever?
Meth
Did anyone
Undercover.
remember the statement where the mom turned the son in? She finally they got high together all the time.
Yeah.
Mom turned the son in, and her main reason for turning her son in on her statement was not because she wanted her son to get healthy, not because she knew it was wrong, because she felt that eventually she was going to end up having sex with her kid.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Mm-hmm. That's the one.
Exactly. And I'm like, wow. I mean, that's the only thing. You watch him lose his life, not work, do everything that he's doing, and the only thing that's going to stop him finally to turn him in is, you know what, I might end up sleeping with him. That's the life of meth addicts. You know, I take in association the guy down in Colorado Springs, our new sheriff, the sheriff now, trade methamphetamine, they go hand in hand. When we go hit a meth house, one thing that we always have there, you always have a ton of porn. And then you have that tinkering effect that methamphetamine addicts get, They get fixated on things. You know you're in a meth user's house when everything is pretty much taken apart. They take apart the VCR, they take apart the TV because they get fixated on whatever it is. The meth bugs, that's all that is. It's not, meth bugs aren't real. It's not a real bug. It's that fixation. I got a mole on my arm. I just start picking at it. And I pick at it, and I pick at it, and I pick at it. And I create a sore, and I'm like, and I pick at the sore, and I find another one. But then I start hallucinating. I get that feeling like there's something crawling under me that I gotta get it out from under there. There's something under me, so I get fixated with that feeling. I just get picking at it, and picking at it, and picking at it. We did an arrest once before on a guy out. He was a seller and a user, violating the basic rules of being a dope dealer. You know, selling and using, it's high. We come up, guys, this, you'll learn, I do this a lot. It means I got a gun in my hand. It's just, when I train, I always do that when I do tactics. So it's a habit I'm never going to break. So we come up on the guy's car, and we're telling him, get out of the car, get out of the car, get out of the car. And he's just freaking out. And on point, I slap his window, get his attention, and he screams and buries his head. We bust the window, we pull him out. When it's all said and done, and we're asking him, you know, what was going on with you? We always talk to him afterwards, because once our job is done, 98% of us are not butts after that. There are some of us that are, but once it's just a job. Once I arrest you, my job is done, for the most part. I have nothing against you or anything like that. We asked him what was going on. He goes, you know what? He actually saw us as demons attacking him. That's what we were to him.
Yeah.
You know, and that's a strong hallucination that you deal with. Again, like I was talking about the HBO thing, the unsafe acts that go with it, unsafe sex acts, HIV, hepatitis C, sharing the needles. You know, all that comes in the fact that so you have all these opportunistic diseases that come along with methamphetamine use.
Before you go on, Mike,
I was getting ready to say.
I just had maybe a comment. They have a lot of commercials on now for meth and, you know, not using. And I went on the Colorado Meth Project.
Yes.
And they have a whole bunch of commercials that maybe haven't even been seen yet on
Don't
TV.
get the PSA.
And our kids sometimes have a hard time relating to some of the pictures that you were showing. But they really have related to those commercials.
Oh,
And
yeah.
there are about 6 of them that I've shown to various kids, and each of them can identify with at least one of them, and it's been real interesting. And the project says it's really helped a lot with kids that maybe haven't used yet, that seeing all those, they would try to help somebody not use and maybe not use themselves.
I have a bunch of similar PSA type deals when I talk with kids. It shows about the partying aspect of it. Partying aspect of methamphetamine, a lot of them use it for it. All it takes is, you know, we call it a t-shirt. It's just like a teener or something, you know, that amount to hit before you go party. And you're up, you're feeling good, your libido's going, you want to have fun and do whatever you want to do. But one of the pictures I show is this very attractive girl at a party with this guy that looks like he just crawled out of the sewer.
Yeah.
And it's like, normally you probably wouldn't even consider him, but tonight you're gonna, you know. And that's the thing, is you're watching that, and the physical abuse that goes with things that they'll put up, the the domestic abuse at that age that they're dealing with these guys and whatnot. It's the PSAs are great. We actually mimicked the Montana Meth Project with that, and I'm glad it's finally here and out on the street and being put out more. Cocaine. Cocaine's still the #1 imported drug that we deal with. All right? Cocaine's still the moneymaker for drug dealers. It's their bread and butter. It's out there. It was once considered the rich man drug, because you snort it up, carry it with you, it's very cool to use. Again, it's a physically addicting drug, not a psychologically addicting drug. Right? You can kick the habit of cocaine, and it's going to just be the physical addiction that you're dealing with. You're not dealing with the psychological addiction on it. He's again, as a stimulant, same thing as methamphetamine. It's going to hit that same dopamine system, that pleasure system. It's very fast. Anybody know the difference between, go ahead, let me see if I have crack on there next. No. Crack cocaine and cocaine, HCl. What's the difference?
You know, the process, the way they process it.
Somebody,
They're cooking it.
say
It's
again?
like, isn't it, it's what?
Is it two different drugs though?
No, it's not two
Absolutely
different.
not.
It's the way it's processed.
What is it? Tell me. I like for people to.
I can't remember. I just
Oh, basically, I take my cocaine, put it in water, put it in baking soda, and I boil it out. Basically, all that does, it takes impurities out, and now I have what we call cocaine base. So it takes out the impurities, so I move from 36 to 58% cocaine HCl to somewhere in the 80s. If I'm really lucky, I might hit 90. Okay? Those of us that are my age, Richard Pryor knows about cocaine base. Now it's smokable. You made it a smokable deal. Okay, it's something that you can smoke. The difference is now your body can't take much cocaine of that purity unless you smoke it, because you're going to take so much in and you're going to give the rest of it out. Okay, if you took cocaine base like you take regular cocaine, you would do. That's what happened with Lynn Bias. Okay, I don't know how many guys watch basketball. You remember Lynn Bias? I was out in D.C. I'm from that area. Lynn Bias, I used to play ball right up the street from me. He was the pre-Michael Jordan guy. Okay, playing out of Maryland, heck of a ball player, snorted cocaine that was way more pure than he was used to. Okay, it was somewhere in the 80s, upper 80s, and he overdosed on it. Okay, you can't snort cocaine that high. You can smoke it when it's that pure. And the only reason why you can smoke it again is you don't take in as much. Your uptake is minimal. But when it goes into your body, it's rapid. The onset of that high is rapid. Seconds from the time you smoke that to the time you start feeling it. But it doesn't last as long. That's why when crack came out across the country, it was a wave coming from the west, but it never made it out east. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit. Well, I'm going to talk about it now. Anybody know why crack cocaine did? Anybody from the East Coast? What part?
Bronx in New York.
All right. Never saw crack out there, did you? Never. What was the drug of choice out there?
Weed.
Weed. But the big drug out there, how old are you, if you don't mind me asking?
35.
35. So you're a little bit younger than me. The big drug of choice out on the East Coast once you graduated was heroin. You shot heroin out east. Okay? When crack came to the country, it just was like a red wave across the country until it hit the east, and it never took on. It still has never really taken on out east. There is minimal crack problems out east because they got heroin.
You know, that's a little confusing to me because that's what we do as the relapse prevention group, but you never found a lot of information on crack. It's always about meth. And the thing is, I assumed it started more east.
That crack did?
Yes, just
Yeah.
because that's just me not knowing. I just assumed that it did. And then I know that it was through Oklahoma area because that's where I'm from and stuff like that. But I never heard much about out this way,
Yeah.
not
About
west.
crack out here? Or meth?
No, I'm talking about crack.
Crack, yeah. It came out here, and we have it. Colorado's a little different in that we are like the FedEx of the drug world. From my perspective, if you think about our highway system, we're the first major city that you hit that can take you anywhere else in the country. That's why DIA is so popular. But it's also for our highway systems. When people drive drugs, we catch loads of 100 kilograms of cocaine that's not meant for here. They may be dropping 20 off and keeping on going. But this is the FedEx spot. This is the hub. And if you think about how people view Colorado throughout the country, everybody thinks it's kind of a backwater hick place, to be quite honest. You know, it's like, I don't deal with drugs out there. Well, yeah, we do. All right. But there's a little bit of everything here. Heroin is coming back. Methamphetamine's out here. Cocaine's out here. Weed's out here. And we have a little bit of everything here.
Heroin's big down south too. A lot of
Yeah.
people down south.
Heroin's on the rise. And you know why heroin's back on the rise? Because prescription drugs are getting harder and more costly. And it's still an opiate, and it has almost the same effect. It's cheaper and easier to get heroin than it is to get oxy. That's why. We can skip through that. We can skip through that one. We can skip through that one. Because I'm supposed to talk about that. Now, this one I will talk about. Okay. No, I'm sorry. Can you go back one more? Long-term side effects. The nausea, the weight loss, the disorder, the irregular heartbeat, impaired thinking. But the problem that we talk about with this is that if I increase my heartbeat, I increase my body temperature, I'm asking for a heart attack. I'm asking for a stroke. 25-year-old people shouldn't have heart attacks and they shouldn't have strokes. Okay? That's when people, they use a lot of cocaine. That's what they have. Right? Okay, again, I talked about body temperature, increased heart rate, seizures, brain hemorrhages, convulsions, strokes. Those are things that you don't hear about when you think about cocaine use. You think about cocaine use, typically all you see on the thing is that, oh, it makes your nose bleed, messes your sinus cavities up. You know, it gets in there and it burns all that out. Up inside your nasal cavity, that's just cartilage. That stuff starts sitting in there, it just starts burning holes through it, sitting on there, because it is acid base. When you make cocaine, on the HCl, when it makes the acid, one of the processes is you've got hydrochloric acid that you mix with that. And then you put in what they, basically diesel fuel in there to powder that stuff out. When you put that up your nose, it still had, it's cocaine HCl. So it is still an acid when you're using it. So if you're snorting it up, it still has an acid base. Again, cocaine is pretty easily addictive. Crack cocaine is much more easily addictive. Crack cocaine and methamphetamine are the two things that we will say that you can get addicted on the first use. Several people will actually attest to that. Probably many of your clients will test you once they use it, I didn't want to do nothing else but get high. Discovery Channel is getting ready to run a great thing, I think it's Discovery Channel, on drugs in America. I think it's getting ready to start this week.
Drug Inc.
Yeah. So I would recommend, I mean, it's very educational. DEA helped out a lot with that. We're getting more and more involved in things like that. The DEA used to be like the cloak and dagger type of deal. We didn't want anybody knowing about us. We didn't want to take credit for anything. You know, we would just stay in the back shadows. But now, I'll be honestly, the reason why budget things, we want everybody to know that we're doing these things. You know, the reason why you know about this, DEA did it. The reason why this happened, DEA did it. Okay? Huffing, inhalants. Anybody have any information that you know about huffing?
It's the worst.
That's
Anybody got any? Who are my ones with teenage kids? If there's anything you want to talk to your kids about, honestly, this is the one thing we never talk to our kids about. I've got, well, now they're 18, but in 20. But you never think about this stuff. Who's got Pam in their kitchen right now, or any kind of non-stick spray? Who got spray paint? Oh my guys, who's got 10W40?
Yeah.
Air duster.
Yeah. Who's got a computer that likes to use a computer cleaner? Who's got a lawnmower and got a can of gasoline? I told your kids when I was growing up, I loved the smell of gasoline. I still do. I ain't gonna lie. I like the smell of gasoline. Anybody? Come on, be honest. There you go. I like the smell of gas. I used to jump out and pump the gas for my mom, and not because I was a good kid. I like the smell of gasoline. You know, I still like it when I'm putting it in my mower. You know, not to mean I'm not going to go do a rag and put it over my face, you know, but I like the smell of it. That's why people do it. These are other things, amyl nitrates, air blast, which are your sprays, isobutyl nitrate, different things we use, baggings, just simply using them, bangs, also inhalant, bolt, buzz bomb, curls, shoot debris, snot balls, toluene, spray paint. Okay, so I keep getting in front of you. All right, go ahead. Inhalants. Any breathable chemical vapor that's going to alter you. Guys, one thing that we do know is wherever you stop as an inhalant abuser, the damage to your brain is where you stay for the remainder of your life. There is no recovery from inhalant abuse. There is no coming back, there's no bouncing back, there's no reconnecting the synapses, there's nothing. Once you stop there, it's where you'll be. Remember not Kramer, you ever watch the show Taxi?
Yeah.
Where the guy was always like out of it? He was kind of simulating like an LSD user. Basically, LSD has that same thing. LSD, you can use LSD and you're there. You're tripping off LSD for the rest of your life almost. You're there. It affects you that way. Inhalants do the same thing. Different kinds you can use. You've always solvents, glue, petrol, gas, look. Cigarette lighters, hairsprays, air fresheners, nitric oxide. Nitric oxide, like, well, how do people get that? Okay. All these car things, you can get it from Big A, Checker, all this stuff. Nitric oxide is also used as a daybreak drug. Okay? And we'll talk about that a little bit, what that does as well. The other, amyl nitrate, butyl nitrates. What does it look like? That's actually just, a picture that they actually photoshopped of this guy. He was actually just getting arrested. He didn't have as much, but they threw that on him. All right? That's what he really looks like. Every one of us has this in our house. Absolutely every one of us has this in our house. And it's there waiting. I don't know how many of you guys have ever read or heard about the story about the New York. He was in New York, I'm sorry. He was out east, though. He was a cop. His wife was a nurse. Best case scenario for keeping kids off drugs, in my mind. You got the medical side, you got the law enforcement side. Kid never touched a drug. Kept buying the computer cleaner, though, for his computer. Every time he'd go to use it, it was empty. Go buy another one. Go to use it, it's empty. One day he comes home, he's looking for his 15-year-old son. Asks his wife, well, I think he's in the den. There he is, straw in his mouth, dead. All right. Basically, that's carbon dioxide in those sprays there. Okay. Does two things. Oxygen deprivation, immediately as soon as you do it, instead of getting any kind of oxygen, you get that wheezy feeling. The other one is that cool feeling from the compressed gas when you do it. A lot of people put a piece of paper over it because they don't like the cool feeling of it. Okay. That also, when you get that freezing feeling, it can constrict your larynx and choke you out. Okay. It's just like if I put you into a guillotine or something, and you're like, I can't breathe without anybody actually grabbing you. Again, produce a rapid high. It resembles alcohol intoxication. It's oxygen deprivation is what it does. Small amount, significant amounts are inhaled. So you can produce a loss of sensation even in consciousness. It can start affecting at the central nervous system. So instead, you start losing the feeling in your fingers. You feel woozy, you feel that. It's something that kids want to feel. It's just like playing that choking game that kids do. Hold you against the wall, and then they fall down. Ooh, it's fun. Okay. How's it taken? You got to breathe it in. Basically, if you're going to use toluene, using toluene, spray it in a bag, which is gold or silver spray paint. Highest level of toluene of any paints. Right? Spray it in a bag, put it over your face, sniff the fumes as it aerosols. Gas, put it on a rag, put it in the bag, put it on your face, smell it. Now with permanent markers, Sharpie has been so nice to add like strawberry smell to them and everything else. It still has the same effect, it just smells better while you're doing it. Okay? So, all your permanent markers. I can tell a story. I was on a case where I had to write out like numerous of those manila folders with bunches of names on it, and they were all like hyphenated names. And I'm in there for 15 minutes, and I'm just everything starts blurring around me. I'm like, what in the hell? And I feel so bad. I'm sitting in a closed room in my office writing out a bunch of these things, and not even realizing it. But that's easy to use. Why is it taken again? It's similar to alcohol, but it lasts longer. Okay, it's easy to get. If I go to Kmart, I go to Walmart, I can pretty much pick up spray paint. They may or may not ID me. All depends on who it is. Walmart has kids working there. Kids don't bother other kids. You know, if I'm 18 years old, 17 years old, and I go in there and buy, like, man, I got a school project. I don't know how many times I've had to spray paint something for my kids growing up. You know, or if my wife decides, hey, that thing needs to be out on the deck furniture. You know, they don't bother you when you do that. Now, the nitrates. When I talked about the date rape drugs, okay, your nitric oxides, your nitrate drugs, basically work on smooth muscle tissues. Okay, they also, you get that out of body where you start losing, you know, kind of know you're there, but you don't remember a whole lot about what happened while you were there. Okay, a lot of date rape drugs from that. It's a lot of sodomizing type, older men, younger guy type of things that we see law enforcement wise. All right. Other things why they want it, again, hallucinations, reduce inhibitions. That's why most people get high. That is the one common factor for getting high across the board. For getting drunk, for doing anything else. All right. You know, we've all heard things. You know, you start to get your beer muscles and things like that. Get that, you know, get that courage in a glass. That's why there's all the bar fights and everything else. That's what drugs do. Reduce your inhibition. Feel a little bit more that you can do a little bit more than you can't do. What happens to you? Slurred speech, convulsions, bloody nose, headaches, dizziness, sores around the mouth because that stuff is a little bit caustic, confusions, vomiting, throat irritation. The worst ones, right? The tremors, the memory loss, liver and kidney damages. Most things that go in your body get processed through your kidneys, right? Through your liver, excuse me. All right, degenerative brain disease. All right, that's when you start using, when they were using leaded gas, when we still had that out there. All right, irregular heartbeat, depression, anything that gets you up brings you down. Followed by that, the most common effect is you're going to have a depression on these things. Loss of hearing and smell. Again, possibly depressed and being victimized. Being a victim if you're actually out there. That's one thing that is common amongst a lot of young drug users, is they end up being the victim of a lot of different things. Go ahead. Spice. Not that kind. All right. Anybody know what spice is? Synthetic, who says synthetic THC?
Yeah.
No. All right. What are you going to say?
It's incense. That's what it smells like.
Absolutely not. Anybody else?
Like that stuff you buy.
Come on. You guys haven't been here. Yes. What is it?
Yes.
It's in that book. A mixture of different herbals, something, yada yada. Then a long word that ends in SIA.
Basically, they call it legal weed, right?
That's right.
Legal weed. What is it really? That's it. JWH 108, JWH 079, JWH 200, JWH 089, all the different analogs. It's basically one naphthalide iodol, okay? Basically, why is it in the instance in the like on the green leafy stuff? It's put on there simply so it can resemble weed. So you can recognize what it is. If I gave you this, you'd be thinking meth. You're like, cool, no, I don't do meth, I just do weed. You know, this is worse than meth in some senses, because it was never intended for human consumption. Right? The problem with it, it's an analgesic chemical that produces things similar to meth, similar to marijuana, but a lot stronger. I've heard things 50 times, 5 times, 60 times. I always err on the side of caution. I use it 5 to 15, up to 25 times as strong.
I was thinking that that's the stuff you could buy at the store at some of the gas stations,
Yes,
and that it wouldn't show up in
That
your.
is it.
If you had a
Absolutely.
That's what
way.
it is.
Yep.
So that's why it's
exactly
big.
what it is.
Because I remember this.
You won't get popped on your piss test.
Right. So that's what. But how is it that okay, but that won't show up?
Because it's not a cannabis.
Okay.
It's not cannabis. It is it's a man-made chemical. So it's not a cannabinoid, and your test is looking for cannabinoids.
Right.
All right. This is, again, it's from this, it's an analgesic, and it's from this family. And all these different analogs of it is how they stay ahead of us. Because we go and we say, all right, you know what? The 078, it's illegal. Okay, I'm not selling 78. I'm selling 200.
Wow.
Okay, so it has the same effect, but the analog's different. So then we have to go, now we have to do the other one.
A lot of places can't sell it anymore, right?
The reason being is we finally got smart, and you cannot sell it. It's illegal. Well, there's a couple that are, but now what we say on there, instead of trying to go for the analogs that we've been, because it takes a long time to make something illegal. All right, it's just our process, our legal process. I can't make something illegal. The DEA, what we can do is our emergency declaration, and that's what we had to do on this. We did an emergency declaration that said, as of right now, it's illegal, but we only have a six-month window in which to come out and make it permanent. And the first time we kept going at these analogs and saying, well, we want to make this, we want to make that. Finally, what we said is, any of these analogs that start, of these analgesics that affect you in this manner and is attached to this group, this chain, and that's how we're able to actually get most of them illegal now. So you cannot. As a matter of fact, the states, Colorado just started as of January 1 on some of them as well. And this is how they're packaged. All right. Premium stain remover, the incense, the spice. And if you look at it, it's 250 milligrams for about 25 bucks. All right. That's not Costco savings. All right. If I'm going to spend 25 bucks on something, I want the giant size of it. So this is obviously marketed at kids. It's marketed to be ingested. All right. And when we hit these places, they're like, no, that's an incense. You know what? If I want an incense, I'm going to pay $1 and I'm going to get 27 cents. All right? I'm not going to go and do that. All right? And it doesn't need to be marketed with the summer boost, the potpourri, things like that, diesel power. All right? Now, how's it good? Just like weed. Smoke it in a cigarette, smoke it in a bowl, however you want to do it. Now, this is actually what's amazing, though. These are actually from the internet. I went on and I said, you know what? I want to know what it does. You can go ahead and figure out what it does. And, when it was made, who researched it and what it does. And the mind behind it realized, this stuff is just like cannabis. You can smoke and you have these different things. But remember, it's not for human consumption. And so now when they sell it, they have to put that in there. And you can go buy it, and they'll tell you, that it's not for human consumption, but then they tell you how to use it, how to actually smoke it, and how much you should use on each time you smoke it. But remember, you shouldn't consume it. All right? Then you go to YouTube. You can find out how to do anything you want in this world on YouTube. All right? I wanted to change something on my car. I didn't know how to do it, so I went to YouTube. And there were videos and explanations from everybody in the world. I want you to know how to use K2 Spice. And they blogged all about it. Okay? Has anybody ever tripped? I know y'all can read, but has anyone ever tripped like this? Scared as fuck. My heart rate's flying, worried about internal torture, feeling of impending doom. Not at all like this. Here's the kicker. Been smoking it every day for 4 months. Not like it used to be. Rarely getting this high. I'm like, why are you still doing it, dude?
Yeah.
Right? Scary. But he's asking other users how to get on it. So his comments, so somebody responds. Like anything, depends on the person. Depends on what you're doing. This guy here tells him when you should do it and what time you should have. Just wait about take a small hit, wait about 5 or 6 minutes, have another one. I wouldn't roll about this. Go ahead.
Wow.
I don't think you went anywhere. Hit it one more time. Or I doubled that one up, 1 and 2. All right, here we go. One guy said it happened to me too. It's not like natural weed. I'm having a real, I'm having a lot of problems. I'm not smoking that stuff anymore, right? The other guy says, you're trying the wrong kind. Try this type here. I tripped for about 2 hours and it was fun. Right? Other guy, I smoked Mr. Nice Guy today. And then the next one, the voice of reason finally comes in. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh no, sorry, one more. This guy, he'll go back. This guy that was using it, he forgot it was illegal. He's like, oh yeah, it's illegal. That's the voice of reason. But he stopped using, not because it was illegal, because he was driving one day and his feet went numb. And he couldn't drive anymore. Not because it was legal, because now I can't put the brakes on. I can't do that. That's the problem when everyone says, well, synthetic weed is just like weed. It does this, it's better than weed. No, it's a stronger chemical compound that has the effects of it, but it has other effects too. That's why we made it illegal. All right. Withdrawal symptoms similar to using cannabis. Intense anxiety, panic attacks though. Like with weed, you don't have the panic attacks as much. One thing about marijuana though that I'm going to regress back to is you don't know what kind of marijuana high you're going to get. I've dealt with agitated ones, the cool ones, the funny ones, the stupid ones, the sad ones. It's like the same thing with alcohol. You don't know if you're funny drunk, a stupid drunk, a violent drunk. It's the same thing. Not everybody metabolizes this stuff the same way. But there is a commonality with spice though. Right? You have these panic, these anxieties, these anxiety attacks that go along with it. You can't have seizures, right? This is what you were talking about. It's not detectable. That's why they're using it. You can take the different sample. Only way you're going to find out is if you take a blood test for it. And most people don't do blood tests, and they know it. Bath salts. The next thing that came right after we saw K2 Spice, bath salts came out. All right? Same thing, MPDP. All right? It's real similar to cat that you get down in Eastern Africa, in the Arab countries. It's like a methamphetamine. Get that same kind of high. It's typically orally ingested. You can smoke it, you can ingest, and you can inject it. Typically, they're going to snort it and they're going to inject it. Has that same stimulant effect. Again, it's like methamphetamine. People are using it because it's like methamphetamine. The difference with this is you have these like demonic, horrible hallucinations that go along with this. I don't know if I went too far. That come along with using this. Right? It's not the same as just using regular meth. All right? Chest pains, increased blood pressure, body temperature, not body temperature. All right? Increased heart rate, agitation, hallucinations, extreme paranoia. A lot of those things are common with meth, but these are going to be magnified. Here's some ER visit things that they're dealing with down to the east and south with bath salts. Go back. So agitated that regular, you just couldn't give them your normal, you had to actually go to general anesthesia because the regular sedatives weren't working in the ER because they couldn't handle it. I mean, you actually had to put him under like he's going to have surgery. All right. Next one, 107.5 degree body temperature. Organs start failing at about 105 for an extended period of time. All right. So, go ahead. Here's one, the guy, why is a cross-dressing man? It doesn't matter. But basically, using bath salts, starts hallucinating, gets his neighbor's pygmy goat, takes it up to his room, and slaughters it. Okay? All over him. What I tell people is that hallucination, how easily could that have been his neighbor's 5-year-old kid?
Yeah.
And that same hallucination. Violent hallucinations associated with bath salts. Okay? February 2011, only 251 related calls to poison control centers, all right? Which is still more than the 2010. In 2010, there was only 236. But by June, it had jumped to 3,400, all right? There you go. Go back one, sorry. The latest numbers that it is somewhere in about the 25,000 range right now, dealing with this for emergency room visits, where people get high on this, they start having these hallucinations, their body temperature up, they can't be controlled.
So wait, when you say that, when you say 2,500, what are we, 2,500 a month?
20,000.
25,000 a month?
No, in that period of time, there's been
Okay.
25,000 people up to,
Since 2010?
no, during the year 2011.
Okay.
They had to go to the emergency room. And those numbers were actually as of like August. They haven't put out the rest of the year, so I imagine it's going to jump even more. So I imagine it's going to be closer to the 75,000 range
Is Colorado one of the states that's banned sales?
as of January 1 finally. When I first put this together, I was saying nope. But now finally, as of January 1, they finally did. State came out and it is finally banned.
So what's the benefit of it? I mean, you're talking about all the horrors of it. but
It's a
why-
meth-like high.
So
You
you're
get
just
high.
really energetic.
You get the hallucinations that go with it, you get the euphoric feeling that goes with it, it's a stimulant, you get a lot of energy. And there is a lot of too. And the biggest benefit of it wasn't illegal. So you could do it, it wasn't illegal. And it was a lot cheaper. An ounce of meth runs you about $1,200. If it's good, you're talking ice. You know, with $1,200, where you can go get this at $20 a pack. You know, a little bit cheaper. Again, how it's marketed. Again, it's a party drug. It's marketed to be that. Right. If you put this in your bath, and you run a full bath, you wouldn't even know it was there. Parts per million, you could drink your bath water and not even get high. All right. So if I put 250 milligrams in there. Anybody heard of 2CE? It's the next wave of synthetic drugs that are coming across. Right now, Europe is dealing with it a lot. You see it now in 2 or 3 states towards the east right now. That's actually the northeast. Detroit's seeing it over in that area. Basically what it is, if you notice the first one, spice was like weed. Bath salts was like meth. This now is like LSD. Okay? So, like, it's a psychedelic type of drug. So they're moving to the different types of it. Now, one thing I really want to talk about is they tell you how you can take it. Basically, you can snort it nasally. Requires a much lower dose, not exceeding 5 milligrams. But that consumption method elicits a noticeably painful or uncomfortable sensation in the nasal cavity for about 10 minutes or so. And I'm thinking, wow, okay, if something hurt my nose for 10 minutes, really doubted I'd take it, you know? So, but again, it gives you vivid hallucinations, wild trip type, LSD type hallucinations, without the LSD everlasting effect. That's why it's becoming popular. If I can sit and trip for 25, 30 minutes to an hour and not have everlasting brain problems, maybe 10 minutes of nasal pain is worth it, you know, for a drug user. All right. Any questions or anything? All right. Again, one of the common names is Europa. Again, it's a psychedelic. It's a phenylethylamine. I'm not going to talk about the chemical name, but again, it's a synthetic psychedelic drug. Again, not intended for human consumption, but used in human consumption to get high. Ways of using it: orally, sublingually, snorting, very painful, rectally, and intravenously. This is one of the few theory drugs that move to the most ways of taking it in. So 5 ingestion method now. Methamphetamine only had 4, crack had 4, now it's got 5 here.
Sorry, what's subliminal?
100 times. Yep. That's what it looks like. That's about $200 worth, or more, $200 to $500 worth. And it's not sold in, all these drugs, none of these drugs are sold in the United States. If you look on, they're all sold in China, primarily, and you can get on, and most of the places only will sell you like a kilogram and up quantity. They won't sell you 500 milligrams of it. All right? They won't sell you, 2 doses. All right? I think I actually have again, it's just the capsule form of it where it's broken down. Here we go. This is an ad for it where I went and looked it up. Minimum order 15 grams. They talk about it. 16.90 per gram. And I didn't let the part, it says minimum order is 15 grams in that. But as you go on, it's like in the capsule method, but you must place an order of like 2 kilograms or more. All right? All right. I know I had 2 hours. There's no way I'm going to talk for 2 hours straight. So unless you guys ask questions, or anything else that I talked about or did not talk about that you would like me to touch on.
How often is human trafficking associated with drug trafficking through the Denver metro area?
In the Denver metro area, not as much. That's mainly a border problem that we're seeing, and they are completely tied in with one another. So what you're seeing is, I don't know, right now, if you've ever watched the show Cowboys and, no, it's something Coyotes or something we've got on A&E right now, where DEA is actually working with Border Patrol and Customs and Immigration along that border. And we're dealing with the human trafficking and the drug trafficking that goes right along. Because a lot of times, what they're doing is, if you're going to get across, I'll help you get across. If I can either have you ingest this or you carry this for me. Trafficking methods are crazy. We've had where they're bringing around the toys. They actually we've had numerous cases where they actually cut open animals, sew it into them, sew them back up, and ship the animal across. And it's usually liquid heroin is the best one for that because it's pliable. The animal can still move around it, and they'll put a half-kilo bag of liquid heroin inside of them, sew them back up. Typically it's puppies because they're cuter and they're easy to get across the border. So, yeah, it's true.
What about is it typical for drug traffickers to use humans as scapegoats to do their trafficking for them?
Absolutely. One thing that you see with the movement, the border crossing of drugs, is that with the economic system the way it is in Mexico, 90% of our drugs come through the Mexican border. Okay, it's a large area. Everyone says, "Why don't you close it up?" It's huge. It's a massive land area. If I come to you there and you're making $2,000 a year, I mean, that's your family income, $2,000 a year, and I offer you $5,000. That's 3 years, 2.5, 3 years worth of income, and all I need you to do is walk across the border, all right, or drive this car across the border and park it into a lot. Okay, $5,000, yeah. And we take those people off. Let's say I arrest you. Problem is, I know where your family lives and everything else. You're in debt to me for that load. So now you've got to keep working for free. And we've had cases where people have lost loads. I don't know if anyone reads about the violence that's going on in Mexico right now. I mean, multiple just massacres along the border. But there's a fight for power going on there. So if you lose a load, I go kill your entire family and still make you work for me. Yeah, there's a lot of human trafficking going on with that. Or what we'd say like heroin. Heroin organizations are extremely organized. I was specializing in heroin cases for the last few years. You would have, I bring up a crew from Mexico or Honduras or wherever I want to, and I bring up a 6-man crew. And from 7 o'clock in the morning till 2 o'clock, all they do is sell we call them spitter bags because they keep it in their mouth, of heroin all day long. $10, $15, $50, $100. You do that all day long thinking, well, it's only $5 a pop. But if I do that from 7 to 3, I make about $8,000 a day. Okay. Now, that crew comes in, the crew that's there gives them a phone, customer phone. This is all the users that I know that called me up. Here's the phone, here's your deal. I take my money, I go back to Mexico. I've got 6 months of operation here. Now, if you get caught, you're done. You're on your own, but you still owe for that money that they, because when you have to set, it's almost like a franchise fee. So you pay a franchise fee to be a part of this. And they're extremely organized in that. And so they prey on, like these poor towns, people that say, you know, I just want to come up there and spend 6 months. If I spend 6 months and I come back with $100,000, I'm good. I can go buy a ranch. I'm set in Mexico for a long time. And that's what they prey on.
So the domestic issue, like domestic human trafficking, isn't as tied in to drug trafficking as international?
Not domestic, not as much as international. You're seeing some in some of the Russian cartels and stuff. You're seeing some of that, but you know, as they call it, the white slavery issues, domestic trafficking, not as tied in. Drugs are used, but it's not in the trade of them, because once they're inside the United States, they become two separate entities. Okay, if you could be a human trafficker, you're probably not a drug dealer. You get drugs and you have those available because that's what keeps your control. So, but you're not typically a trafficker and a dealer. And for us, the one that we've run into, if we find one that's dealing to a trafficker, then we have another agency that does actually do those investigations. Yes, sir.
Talk about DMT.
I'm sorry, say again.
DMT.
What is DMT?
It's like they call it businessman's acid. It's really popular in Douglas County high schools right now. It's like the 30-40 minute super big high, and then they're
I
down.
have to say that I am not, well, I have no idea what that is. Yeah. If you can tell me what the drug is, as opposed to what the slang name is.
Dimethyltryptamine. It's in here. It's a Schedule 1.
Yeah.
Joe Rogan, one of the comedians, really became a proponent for it.
Yeah.
And it's definitely expensive, but it is the hot thing in Douglas County schools.
It's a pharmaceutical though, right?
Correct. It's a naturally occurring neurotransmitter that aids in sleep, but they're able to process it, and it's, kids have described it, kids either love it or said it was so scary they'd never do it again, but it's really up and down in 40 minutes, and then they're back to class.
Really? I have to do some more research on it, because I haven't personally dealt with any of it, so I don't know anything about it. But we're looking at, and that brings me to pharmaceuticals, and I don't have that in my PowerPoint here, but pharmaceuticals, again, are the #1 abused drug now amongst teens. Out second only to marijuana. I'm sorry, it's #2, second only to marijuana. And that we just did our last take back. I don't know if anyone's familiar with our pharmaceutical take back that we did in October. We did one in April, we did one in October, we'll do another one in April again. In April, we took somewhere around 14,000 pounds of pharmaceuticals back. October, we took almost the same amount back again. And if you think about pharmaceuticals, I know out in Highlands Ranch, we were having some issues at some of the high schools there where they were bringing in the oxy from parents. And if you think, I just had shoulder surgery right before Christmas. I got my shoulder scoped. My doctor gave me 60 oxy pills. And I'm thinking, dude, you scoped my arm. You shaved off, a little bit. I was in pain, but 60 pills. There's no way I can take 60 oxy. Just,
They get it. You don't even ask for
painkillers,
and they're like, here,
That's right.
Exactly.
Dentists are the worst for that.
Yeah. And you know why? It is because the American Medical Association's current standard for pain management is manage it aggressively.
Yeah.
Okay? You cannot be sued if I overdose. You can be sued if I mismanage your pain. Now, if you've all been to the doctor, and if you ask the doctor, what's the first thing they ask you about pain? Scale of 1 to 10, what is it? And that's subjective of you. You can say, it's a 9. and a doctor can't tell you, no way, it's not a 9. It can't be a 9. They have to accept whatever it is you say. We just, before I left work yesterday, our diversion department had a stack of papers where people were writing scripts. One doctor had over 700 scripts, no, excuse me, 70 scripts written against him, which equaled out to like 15,000 oxy pills, though. Because each one was for like 90 to 190 pills. You know, it was just incredibly how much OxyContin is. I know they talked about recently on the news how Ritalin is in a shortage because people are abusing it. It's being diverted. Because you go to your doctor, you know, and they're getting it and they're smurfing it out. Otherwise, because it's a stimulant, it's easy to take. One thing that the producers of Oxy have done is they've changed the formula on it now, where you used to crush it and then snort it up, or you know, they wet it and inject it. As soon as it gets to water, it turns to gel now. So you can't take it like they used to.
That's smart.
So, problem is that's only for like the 10s and up. So the 5s still do exactly what they used to. So now what we're seeing is people are specifically asking for 5s. They don't want the 10s. They don't want the 20s. Well, if I write you for the 10s and write you for the 20s, you only have to take 1. No, doc, I can take it better if you give me a 5. Then I can take as many, you know, I can adjust for my pain level at the time. You know? So prescription drugs are out there. The farming parties are still happening, especially in college. Yep.
Some of our kids here have talked about the farm parties, and they just go in their parents' medicine cabinet and they pick up a bunch and everybody puts them in a bowl and you don't know what you're taking. And
I did one for Regis. I did a talk at Regis High School to the parents because they had just recently heard about a farming party that was going to happen, and they kind of circumvented it from happening. But I said it's going to happen again later. Just trust me. You know, you may have stopped it now, but if they want to do it, they're going to do it. But admission is your pills to your party. I said, but can you imagine you're taking pills, you have no idea what they are. You don't know anything about drug interaction, any of that. But you don't know what your parents' problems are. You don't know what they are. You know, and let's say you go in there and you take 3 stool softeners and a muscle relaxer. Whoa, that's going to be a fun party.
That is a surprise. We're going to have a party.
You know, and most kids are like, oh shoot, I never really thought about that. But that's a possibility at these parties that you can do that, you know. But, you know, and that's only because they don't think much about it. Oh, if I take 2 muscle relaxers and an Oxy, I'm like, yeah, you could be messed up. No, that's going to be a hell of a high. But you tell them the other way, they're like, ooh, no, I don't want to do that one. You know? But if you think about it, who's the drug dealer for that, though? We are.
yeah.
Most of us, we're the drug dealer for that. Right now, and I'll be the first to admit, I still have probably 49 of those Oxys sitting in my house right now. You know, my shoulder still hurts a little bit. Just in case I have to re-prescribe myself that drug. And that's the problem that we deal with. You know, is you get it, you go have, any of us that still don't want to give up the athleticism that we once thought we might have had in our youth and we're still trying, end up hurting ourselves and have to go to the doctor and they're going to prescribe it for you. And as opposed to pay another copay, you're going to stick that stuff up in your cabinet and you're going to re-prescribe yourself and save yourself $25. So for $25, we're going to put our family at risk and the neighbor's kids and everybody at risk, just so we don't have to pay that $25 copay. You know, and I'll raise my hand just like everybody else because I'm not going to say I'm better than now because I got mine still sitting in mine and I need to get rid of it. Any other questions, comments, jokes? Well, I appreciate you guys having me out here then. I hope it was somewhat informative on the books. I do have a couple other things here that if you are interested in it. That book is pretty much covers everything. But I do have to think about the pharmaceuticals that are being abused that you're more than welcome to have. And then for parents, because I am a dad, I always have to talk about that. Our site, Get Smart About Drugs, okay? Take the time to look at it. Or if you're a grandparent, cousin, uncle, aunt, whatever, take time to look at it. If you want, they're up here. Please take one. These I have plenty of them, but it talks about so many things that the general public, excuse my term, but is ignorant of. Okay? And you really need to know, because your kids are not ignorant about it. Right? They know a hell of a lot more than you think they know about this stuff. And they talk to one another and they deal with it all the time. Thanks.
Thanks, Mike.